I have a question for you. Have you ever watched Parks and Rec? Have you ever seen those scenes of those weird people in Parks and Rec being mad about ridiculous nonsense?
This that's happening here is not allowed.
We at the Society for Family Stability Foundation object to this smut being taught. It's against Pawnee's abstinence-only sex education law.
That's only for schools.
The way the bill is drafted prohibits any government employee from teaching anything but abstinence.
If we allow this filth to be taught to our seniors, then our kindergartens, and before you know it, we have babies in thong underwear. Is that what you want?
Well, if you haven't experienced that in real life, I have, and I'm going to tell you about it today, while I also talk to you about a book that features such things. Welcome to Banned Books Week, by the way. The book we're talking about today is My Kind of Trouble by L.A. Schwartz, an adult contemporary romance with a great and relevant plot about a con woman named Harmony who goes to a smaller town to run a con on a politician who she wants revenge against. Yes, it is a gender swap Music Man retelling, but she ends up helping out a local librarian named Preston who is dealing with attempted book banning from that same sleazy politician's wife. And while reading this book, I felt so incredibly seen because, as you know, I've been dealing with some book banning and attempted censorship here in my city, Tampa, Florida.
This is not about removing LGBTQ gay books. It's about removing obscenity from our public school libraries.
Okay, this is about a book in the library, and
Isn't that why we're here?
that's why we're here, and you need to focus your remarks on this specific book and this specific.
Okay, well, I have degrees too. I'm an expert. Since everybody said they have a degree and they're an expert in it, I have degrees too. I'm a former United States military veteran. Or I'm not a former veteran. I'm not dead yet. But
we're going to restart your time. If you could just please talk about the book.
Well, everybody's allowed to say their credentials, and I can't. As a veteran and someone who has a degree too, this is not good material. This is pornographic. This is indoctrination. This shouldn't be publicly funded, just like abortions shouldn't be publicly funded. But that's not the case today. I'm just saying. And oh, we're allowed to make chime-ins for the audience now, but I can't say anything on my time. Okay.
There's a far left extreme cult out there that just seeks to indoctrinate people, and getting the children when they're as young as possible is a pretty good recruitment strategy.
Turning Point USA. Our children become victims when adults become submissive. From a pandemic to gaslighting the innocence of children into convincing them that it's okay to give a book in a public tax-funded library that explicitly depicts pedophilia, pornography, and how to use gay sex apps. Here is a reminder that all our rights come from a power greater than ourselves. They come from God.
This is a murder of a child's soul.
Yet when I come here and say I want evidence-based measures, the folks who are speaking over me and attempt to control my children's educational environment by banning books, not a single one of which has ever been proven to be a systematic problem, throw a tantrum at the idea of evidence-based decision. I'm supposed to take their non-professional word for it that these books that have been on shelves for decades are a problem. That is from Song of Solomon in the Bible. I have a point.
Okay, so if you could get to your point, because again, this is about this specific book in this specific school.
Yes, and I'm saying that if this book is gay, violates 847.001, then so does the Bible. Yes? Okay. That is my point. Please take students, teachers, and parents of actually enrolled children into consideration today over people who aren't actually affected. Despite caring about my kids' education being your jobs, and despite non-public school parents showing up here grandstanding claiming they care about my kids, it feels to me that the only person in this room advocating for my kids is me. I want it to be known that I see this as an absolute waste of my time. Aren't I having so much fun? So today we're going to talk about the tea in my county, and we're going to roast some loser book banners, discuss this book itself, and even hear from the author because I got an opportunity to talk to her about her book and book banning. And we're going to do a few other things as well. It's going to be fun. In order to do this, we'll need to be on the same page about what book banning is, which me and book banners are not, because I use the actual definition and they made one up.
These books are not being banned. That word has become a weapon to marginalize the voices of parents. Nazi book banning and the like has essentially been used to eliminate books from circulation. We're not doing that. We're asking you to keep them out of the reach of our children.
No one is asking for books to be banned or censored. That's not what we're doing here. We are asking for age-inappropriate books to be removed from minors so that they cannot get access to them without parent consent.
I hear these words censorship and ban, and you shouldn't prevent my children from reading what they want to read. That's not happening. That's not happening.
Right-wingers absolutely love to change definitions of words like book banning, Marxism, communism, critical race theory. So here's me a few months ago explaining what book banning is. I want to note here that the book banning that we see here in this book, where the books are wholly inaccessible and illegal to obtain, is only one kind of book banning. I hear from people like my resident county book banner, Julie Gebhard, that this is the only kind of book banning, and that is just not true. That's not how definitions work. When in reality, challenging a book is the attempt to ban a book from a library, school district, institution, organization, government entity, retailer, or publisher based on its content. Notice how it doesn't say and. It's not all of those. It's any one of those. If you do it, you're a book banner. Congrats! Challenges can either result in the book being banned or they can be overturned and the book remains in circulation at the organization. Although the US government has engaged in small levels of book banning throughout its history, most books are banned or challenged on a more local scale, which is what you're doing if you try to ban a book at a school district. And again, the or there is very important. Book banning happens in a variety of ways and places, not just one. If you have made previously accessible books inaccessible to the public at any of those places because you object to the content, you are a book banner and that book has been banned in that place. And just like this book brings up how authoritarian regimes love to change the definition of communism to stuff I don't like instead of accurately defining it, authoritarians love to avoid accountability by changing the definition of book banning to only meaning one thing. If we take this book out of circulation entirely, that's not how it's defined. Just like there can be different forms of abuse and you don't have to physically, verbally, and mentally abuse somebody to be an abuser, you can do any three of those things and be an abuser. If you ban a book from one institution, you are a book banner. You didn't have to do all of them. You did it in one, you're a book banner. It's that simple. But they believe that so long as they do not make books banned by retailers, they don't consider it book banning. But that's not the definition. If it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's not a fucking chicken. Now, many of us fighting against censorship use the term soft book banning to mean censorship that isn't necessarily removing books from schools, but trying to limit access for the public where access previously was surrounding books. So this is done through unnecessary further restrictions, like what happened in my Hillsborough County public libraries, which I will explain in a second, and things like author visits to schools being canceled because of pressures from groups like Citizens Defending Freedom, No Left Turn in Education, and Moms for Liberty. Book banning pro-fascists say they are just complaining about books in schools. I also mentioned this in another video.
This is about age-appropriate books in the school libraries. Parents can get these in any other library. Students can get them. But the main thing is, it's against the law. It's against the law. If you don't like it, change the law.
It's against Pawnee's abstinence-only sex education law.
That's only for schools.
Actually, it's not. The way the bill is drafted prohibits any government employee from teaching anything but abstinence.
We are asking for age-inappropriate books to be removed from minors so that they cannot get access to them without parent consent. Our Board of County Commissioner even passed that to where even in a public library, kids have to have parents' permission and they have to be a certain age to check out certain books. So I'm not sure why we're not implementing that here at the public school level.
It's not just wackadoodle Carmen there with the mom haircut. At the school board, my school board, where she does not have any kids in attendance anymore, my kids' school board, where she's at saying, why don't we do what the Bureau of County Commissioners does? It's also Debbie Hunt of Hillsborough County Citizens Defending Freedom, although it seems that their chapter closed. Oh my God, did I bully Debbie into shutting the f up? God, I hope so. This woman who is literally out of a Parks and Rec scene is Debbie Hunt.
This is not about removing LGBTQ gay books. It's about removing obscenity from our public school libraries.
The next thing you know, it'll be in our high schools, then our kindergartens, and before you know it, we have babies in thong underwear. Is that what you want?
So that woman also supported our county commissioners making checking out books harder in our public library system. See, it's not just about the schools, as they claim.
This is about age-appropriate books in the school libraries.
It's about removing obscenity from our public school libraries.
It's about controlling controlling other people and controlling access to things that make them uncomfortable. So what is it that Debbie and Carmen were supporting specifically that our county commissioners did to our public library system? I'm so glad you asked. This happened last year and I've been stewing on it. Every time I went to go write this script, I just kept writing sit on a cactus, and I mean it. Let me allow Hillsborough County dumbass, Hillsborough County Commissioner for District 4, Michael, I don't even have any children myself, Owen, to explain to you his concerns about the county library and the American Library Association, which we previously were affiliated with until he got his grimy little hands on our county libraries.
In an article from Tampa Bay Times, it says a Hillsborough County Commissioner wants parents to know what their kids are reading at the public library. If that were the extent of it, then I would have agreed with him. Unfortunately, that is not the extent of it, and it's also not something that isn't already existing. I have plenty of ability to know what my kids are reading thanks to our public library system, which is great, and did not need Michael Owen's quote-unquote help. Commissioner Michael Owen also wants the adults to have the opportunity to block their youngers from having access to materials in the adult section of the library or, quote, checking out controversial books dealing with sexuality. Now, he refused to elaborate on this part at any time, even when asked in a meeting by me. These should be safe spaces for parents to trust their children aren't getting fed garbage, basically. He also called for the county's 30-branch library system to drop its affiliation with American Library Association. That nonprofit organization began in 1876 and promotes libraries and library education internationally. It had nearly 50,000 members in 2021. Owen, however, said the association has morphed from a library resource to an activist organization. The American Library Association has clearly gone radical, Owen told the rest of the commission on Wednesday. The association's incoming president, Emily Drabinski, who is no longer the president now in 2024, an academic librarian at the City University of New York, called herself a Marxist in a tweet posted after she won the office last year. In her campaign for the association's presidency, she said, "So many of us find ourselves at the ends of our worlds. The consequences of decades of unchecked climate change, class war, white supremacy, and imperialism have led us here. If we want a world that includes public goods like the library, we must organize our collective power and wield it. The ALA offers us a set of tools that can harness our energies and build those capacities." Owen read the statement nearly verbatim to the rest of the commission, but dropped the reference to white supremacy. Owen said in an interview afterwards he was unaware he read an edited version of Drabinski's comments, which are posted on the ALA website. Isn't that interesting? It's not what it's about. It's about her claiming she's a Marxist and us being affiliated with an organization like that. It has nothing to do with LGBT or race or white supremacy. His earlier statements came near the conclusion of the commission's meeting Wednesday, in which board members list topics for future discussion. Chairperson Ken Hagan, who I don't fucking like, cut off Commissioner Pat Kemp as she tried to respond to Owen, saying the subject hadn't been publicly noticed and would be discussed as a further meeting. I fucking love Pat Kemp. "The library was a sanctuary for me," said Kemp. By the way, if you're in Hillsborough, please vote for Kemp in November. She expanded on her comments in an interview with the Tampa Bay Times. "I'm just really concerned about starting to impose on our libraries. They're doing a great job. True. As an actual parent, true. I don't see a reason why we should be reining in our libraries. We should just be encouraging everyone to use them. I don't want to put our libraries in the middle of a culture war." Owen asked the staff to report back to the commission on the county's status as a member of the ALA, what is required to disassociate from the group, and what, if any, program benefits the county library would be forfeiting if it dropped its membership. Separately, he asked for a report on whether minors can check out materials from the library's adult section and whether parents can have an opt-out provision for their children's library cards to prevent juvenile access to adult materials. I want you to think of the library as a buffet. When I take my kid to the buffet, I tell my kid what they can and can't eat. The library is no different, so I just don't really understand this line of thinking. Are you unfamiliar with the idea that parents have to parent their own kids? Owen's push came about a week after a commissioner in Manatee County also suggested his county drop its affiliation with the ALA. The comment came during a workshop and was not the subject of a commission vote. This is because all of these people, they look at what the other counties are doing here in Florida and they just copy it. The same goes for book banners. They just regurgitate each other's talking point. So then we had a meeting, and then the Hillsborough County Public Library Board, which it's a board of people, just like there's a board of county commissioners, there's a board of people for the library, and you can attend both meetings if you're here in Hillsborough County. I have. The Tampa Hillsborough Public Library Board was tasked with restricting access to certain books for kids younger than 18 after the county commissioners voted 5-2 in support of the move. Now, this only happened because Commissioner Michael Owen, again, who doesn't have any children, okay, ordered a report from the Director of Library Services citing concerns over children reading books that deal with sexuality and other mature themes. Owen wanted to know if children with library cards could check out adult books.
But what I will tell you, the books that I'm about to go over, These books, I had an 8-year-old pull. These books, I had an 8-year-old pull.
Yes, you heard that correctly. Michael Owen just said that he had an 8-year-old pull books that he deems pornographic. I just want to remind you, Michael Owen is not a parent. So where did he get that 8-year-old that he decided would be some sort of player in this scene he's acting out? Michael Owen took somebody else's 8-year-old and used them to pull books that Michael Owen deems pornographic. Now, as a parent, I can't imagine what possible parent on earth would allow their child to play a part in this and not feel some sort of keep you awake at night guilt over that. But I guess I'm built different than these people. He also wanted to know if minors with cards could take books from shelves and read them while they're at the library. So Andrew, the director of the library board, said yes. The short answer is yes, if they're unsupervised by a parent or guardian, sure. So Michael Owen asked, okay, so is there an opt-out option for their minor child's library card for parents to make? And Andrew said there is no option. It's up to parents to prevent their kid from checking out books that they don't want them to check out. And so a bunch of us showed up, and you know how many people were there in support of Michael Owen? 0. Oh my God, that's so wackadoodle. Not a single fucking person showed up. Not Carmen, who shows up at my kid's school board, and not Debbie, who also shows up at my kid's school board with that haircut. It was parent after parent after parent showing up and saying, no fucking thank you, Michael. I actually don't need your advice, Mr. Non-parent. I know how to make sure my kids only check out the books that I want them to check out. I have told how my kids need to behave in public, and they follow my rules, and if they don't, then I deal with it at home. It's actually very simple. I know it's foreign to you, seeing as you are not a parent, but that's how it works. Just like I tell my kids that at the public pool, they cannot pull their pants down and swim in the nude. You see how it works? You see how I prep my kids to go into public spaces and I tell them how I want to act before we get there? Yeah. And if they break those rules, again, that's my responsibility as a parent to deal with it. It is not the pool's problem. Anyway, I said all of this at the meeting.
I want it to be known that I see this as an absolute waste of my time. It seems to me that certain people who put forth this agenda item about the ALA do not have the necessary expertise to question library workers on their jobs, seeing as certain members of this board do not seem to understand basic social and economic theory and are wanting to withdraw our library's ALA association based on fear, not on facts or actual research. I am confused why the same person who has asked for evidence that the ALA has any benefit to our library system has offered no evidence to substantiate any of their own claims and says that changes must be done to our library system based solely on their own personal opinions and no adherence to facts or studies. This is concerning to me because serious accusations were made without backing any of them with actual evidence. I would like to remind the board that no one else here is the parent of my children. I am, and I would like my children to have access to good ALA-affiliated libraries that foster critical thinking. I am fully capable of parenting my children on my own. I do not need a nanny state implemented to help me parent my children. I am concerned that there's a witch hunt happening against books that is bleeding over from Manatee County into our county, and I'm frustrated. Books teach children to think critically for themselves and to form critical opinions on the world. All I'm seeing with these restrictions is a possible way of depriving them of their human right to knowledge and education. I want evidence-based decisions made for our libraries, and the burden of proof that the ALA is a problem is on the commissioner making the assertion. For this reason, I would ask this board to clarify the following points, specifically the commissioner who is responsible for this agenda item. Can you point to any reputable studies that show any negative health or social outcomes for children checking out books in the adult section? And if not, how was this conclusion come to? Can you explain what the definition of Marxism is and why the ALA having a president who believes in a certain social economic theory is a problem? To me, this frankly seems rooted in Red Scare propaganda. Can you explain what the alternative plan is regarding the benefits lost by forfeiting the membership, and do you have an alternative plan to offer for the community, specifically the library workers who benefit from the ALA system? Can you provide examples of actual harm that have come to children through libraries associated with the ALA, such that would justify taking our library system out? And are we going to discuss or define what is actually meant by controversial books dealing with sexuality, or is the wording going to remain vague, in which case the Bible will actually need to be made inaccessible to minors as it has as excessive as it gets controversial and explicit content regarding sexuality.
Now, the rule is that kids 11 and under cannot be in a public library without supervision. And it also requires that kids 17 and younger have parental permission before they even get a library card. So even before you go into the building and check things out,
your parent has to be the one to get you that card. If the parent decides that they're going to be irresponsible and not let the child know what boundaries are in place for their particular family, I don't see why the library has to set those. That's a parenting issue, not a government issue. The Library Services Department also states that parents are responsible for monitoring their children's use of the library materials and electronic resources. This is an agreement that parents have with the library. If you're not willing to monitor, then don't opt into using the library at all. Basically, if you don't want to parent, don't use community resources. And in order to assist parents, the library offers an internet safety training program for children. And the safety program teaches children how to safely navigate the internet and to recognize dangers that may be encountered online. Children under 17 have to complete the training program before they can use the internet on library computers. Now, my kids use the computers in this county only with my supervision. My youngest kid likes to go to the library and I have to sit next to him in order for him to get on the computer and use ABC Mouse. And the only reason I haven't downloaded ABC Mouse at home is because then I have something fun for us to just do at the library. See, I super appreciate the library having those options. And I also appreciate that my kid couldn't just log in without me because I don't want them doing that. I don't let them do that at home. My point is the options that I need in order to protect my kid's safety have already been made available to me by my library. And the parents can always go online and monitor every single thing that their kid is checking out. But Michael Owen decided that wasn't enough. I just want to remind you that Michael Owen is not a parent. And if their parent really is worried about that, then they can just do what all the rest of us do and use the tools at our disposal. Make rules with your kids beforehand. Monitor everything they're checking out. Don't send your kid into the library if you feel you can't trust your kid. If you can't trust your kid, that's a parenting issue, not a library issue. So library leaders, the library board, and the information technology staff were then tasked with making a plan to allow to opt their children out of borrowing and accessing material with mature themes. Now, sure, if this had just been done by the library because parents were requesting it, I wouldn't have a problem with it. The problem is who put this forward? How did he come to the conclusion that sending somebody else's child into the library to do this to prove this was a problem that nobody else's kid is actually doing is a problem? And also, why? Because when I walked in there, I said, why is it that you are putting this alongside, at least on the news, that you're worried about the American Library Association having a problem because their new president is a Marxist? So I demanded, hey, buddy, you're going to need to define your terms, and you're going to need to tell me why you feel comfortable using terms that you're not defining as a fear tactic to get parents to side with you. Go on, I'll wait. I then got in trouble at this meeting because Michael Owen was using said fear-mongering tactics, and I yelled, sir, the burden of proof is on you to prove this is a problem causing negative health outcomes for children. They did not like that. They got mad at me. Gwen Myers, one of the only two people to vote no, said the factual statement that the library is a refuge for folks, and Michael's response to this was, a refuge from whom? Buddy, come here. You. It's you. You're the problem. And you know why the library is a refuge? Because you and I both know you never walk in there, bitch. My district commissioner, Harry Cohen, who unfortunately ended up voting yes, I did appreciate that he said that this was a slippery slope, because it's true. It was uncalled for. No parents asked for it. It has not proven to do anything effective, which I've waited over the last year to hear any sort of benefit. Zero, buddy. This didn't fix the problem because you never proved there was a problem in the first place. Just like I yelled out at that meeting, the burden of proof is on you, dumbass. Pat Kemp wisely stated that the measures parents need are already in place.
It's expected within the libraries that anyone that visits a library that's 12 or under has a parent accompanying them.
There is expectation of guardianship, correct?
Right. So we're talking about 13 to 17-year-olds in the library.
Correct.
And in terms of online, so if a parent, a child has a card, anyone can go online and get a book online, because that's what we're talking about here, apparently.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, but the parent could have the card and only the parent, so that they could monitor the child's account. We heard somebody say that today. They could see everything that their child was looking online. They could monitor their online access.
They can monitor what their child has checked out on the library's automated system, correct?
They also could just have their card to be used, and they could take away their own child's card if this was a concern to them.
Yes, that's a parental response, a right as well, not to have a library card for any member of their family.
Okay. So I think we already have the guards in place, the guardrails in place, and I think it's one of parental responsibility. And I'll just say, we had not one parent in here today saying anything about supporting this idea that we needed these more controls somehow. We had the opposite, in fact. We had powerful tributes to our libraries this morning. Libraries are deeply loved in Hillsborough County. I personally am so proud of our libraries, and my biggest issue, and I've talked to you before about this, is that I see we have too few hours, and I guess it's a problem of staffing, and I see the kids sitting on the steps at the libraries in Seminole Heights, and I feel bad about that we don't have longer hours and more access. Our libraries are deeply loved, and for me, like the speakers that spoke, for me, the library as a child was truly my refuge, and books were my refuge. And I can't imagine having raised two kids. I know Mr. Owen, or Commissioner Owen, sorry, you don't have children, right? So you haven't been through this, but I'll tell you, I don't know, any parent would love to have their kids at the library. I can't even imagine a better place. I just can't even imagine it. And every kid nowadays, I mean, all they have to do is have access to their phone, and even if you control their phone, their kid's phone, or like you're saying, online. It's a matter of parents having to take responsibility for this, not us, not our system. And I have to say, parents want their children at the libraries, and I really don't want to start a thing where we start having, making it seem as though somehow our libraries aren't a wonderful place. We don't want to be in the middle of this. I don't think Hillsborough County should be a nanny state for our libraries. And we don't want an unwanted culture war here with our loved libraries as collateral. I just think this is all unnecessary. We already have guards in place. Parents who are concerned need to take responsibility for their own children, and particularly if it's an online access to this, they can totally control that online access. If it's an in-house access at the libraries, they can control that too. So I think it's really a matter of parents taking responsibility for the choices that they make for their children. And we already have the opportunities for them to do that in the way that we already have in place. So I won't be supporting this.
Shout out Pat Kemp, and if you can, vote for Pat Kemp in November. We love Pat Kemp here. I, again, was not the only person at this meeting. Not a single citizen who came for public comment spoke about this being something that actual parents of minor children want. How funny that Debbie and Carmen weren't there. They only talked about it after the fact. I doubt they even use our public library system. And one of our commissioners pointed out, Michael, you don't even have kids. So naturally, this other fucking weirdo on the board decided to chime in.
I do have a kid, a 7-year-old, and a parent did show up to speak in favor of this. This parent showed up to speak in favor of this motion. So I fully support it, and thank you for trying to protect my child, whom I know my wife would be very upset if he was able to check out one of these books next year at 8 years old.
Wow, Josh, way to admit that you never fucking take your own kids to the library. Nice work, buddy. You know what's fucking hilarious about this? Unlike Josh or Michael or Debbie or Carmen, I actually showed up to the next library board meeting. I sure as shit did, because I wanted to know what they had to say about this. As did my friend, who is also a parent of a minor child here in Hillsborough County. So we showed up and we voiced our concern.
We are not talking about nonfiction or other areas of the library, and we're only looking at age-related recommendations, not subject-related recommendations, because we could not possibly read and classify all 2 million titles in the library system to see whether or not they had objectionable content, and that's, as you stated, a very slippery concept.
So the changes that we're talking about are just as a result of that county commissioners meeting?
Yes.
There have not been any changes at the state level when it comes to libraries?
No, there have been no changes to public library at the state level, nor requests to make changes.
Right.
I'm leave it at that, because that's all I
Okay.
know. And what we're looking at is not looking at subject-oriented material. So we're not looking at, these are materials that might have like sexy scenes or something like that, and those are the ones you can, or I heard mentioned title-based approach where you have to opt in and opt out of a specific, we're not looking at anything like that. We're looking at potentially coming up with something that is completely optional, that is age-based. So in other words, and at the end of the day, if your family has access to A, B, and C, you can have access to A, B, and C when we're done. And that means that as a parent, you have the control over your child.
So what, again, did this new move that was, the library was forced to make? Because, there's little signs now that say, changes are coming to your child's library card. So what did this actually achieve? Nothing. Again, parents already had every tool at our disposal to make sure kids were checking out books that we approved of on an individual level, which Bridge to Terabithia is in the library. My kid could go pick it up, but I don't want him to, so I tell him to avoid it because the death of the little girl in that book is going to make him have a panic attack. My kid is terrified of death. Even though that's a children's book, it's not the right one for my child. And it's my job as a parent to individualize what my kids are doing. My other kid could probably read it, no problem. That's our job, to approve of books on an individual level and make a plan that works for our particular families. I didn't need a nanny state in order to do that, and it didn't even help me do that. I was already doing my job. Michael Owen had to manufacture a problem like right-wingers always fucking do to create unnecessary fear in citizens who would back him, and none of them were at that meeting, which is why he stopped talking about the Marxism shit, because nobody was there to back him up. But his unnecessary measures have not made any Hillsborough County children safer. And yet, his little ideas are parroted by censorship advocates at My Not Theirs Children's School Board.
Our Board of County Commissioner even passed that to where even in a public library, kids have to have parents' permission and they have to be a certain age to check out certain books. So I'm not sure why we're not implementing that here at the public school level.
When these people don't even have kids in school anymore, and Michael doesn't have kids at all. Unfortunately, it is not just my county. My friend Carmen over at Homes and Textiles, a fellow Tampa native and book advocate, did a whole video on this. I will link it down below.
Customer called us about a couple of books in our library system, and the books that they found were in the easy reading picture book section of the libraries for little kids. This book is rated pre-K to third grade. Adult conversation in our kids' environments about transsexual, all the things that go on that people figure out in life as they get older. We asked the library team to do a full review and got with Mr. Korbala, Ms. Pearson, and Sean McGarvey. I can't tell you how grateful I am for how serious the team took this exercise.
Sean McGarvey, Libraries Director.
Those books have been what is called suppressed and removed under review, so they are currently not on the shelf. So, and all of the titles that the Commissioner stated have been also suppressed from the catalog and removed at this current time.
I have a list, the objection list from Florida Department of Education and other material to see if this reading material is appropriate for our littlest to, they're all minors in my opinion until they graduate high school. So it was just disturbing. It hit close to home.
It's a single.
And so, I don't know if any other board members feel any type on this. And
This is extremely disturbing. I think we had this conversation about 2 years ago, getting certain books out that was brought to our attention. Why this is in our library is beyond me. I don't think we need to wait for a committee. I think we need to get on this thing right now. This is absolutely horrendous. Ms. Yeager?
I just want to thank Commissioner Waitman for spearheading this, because I completely agree. We have to get these books out of our library. Are they still in our schools?
I can't speak to that end.
We don't control that.
I can't. So
he controls the library.
May I, Commissioner Yeager? So the Florida Department of Education has their objection list, and what Sean and his team have done is, compared this list and then found some above and beyond as we're looking and reviewing. So this is completely this board's jurisdiction, and we can make the decision that we see fit.
I'm ready to make a motion. You're ready.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
So we have set up a process for these books to be vetted. I would highly encourage the board to allow that process to work. The state is currently being sued by the publishers of some of the materials that are on the objection list. So the process was set up for a reason. I'd let that process work its way through.
And she further went to the meeting afterward.
Vanessa and J.R. Ford, the authors of Calvin, mentioned at the September 3rd Board of County Commissioners meeting regarding suppression of books at the library. Good afternoon. We are the authors of Calvin, one of the books taken to task at your recent meeting. I'm writing today to let you know what it feels like to have something that represents your life, your family, your child, and your experience called horrendous and a danger to other children. Calvin is the opposite of that hatred. Calvin is the story of what happens when a child is affirmed and loved by the community that they live in. Calvin thrives and is happy. Isn't that what we want for our children?
So what happened was that the Pasco County Library, which is a county just a little bit north of us here in Hillsborough County, suppressed more than 100 books for children with LGBT themes in their public library system. They pulled 130 books off of their shelves because Commissioner Seth Waitman called for an audit of titles he said to have, quote, disturbing content. And this list includes Tango Makes 3. Are you talking about this? Are you talking about this children's picture book? That's weird. Let me see if I can find anything disturbing in here. Let's see. Here's a zoo. Here's penguins. Oh my God. Oh, just kidding. It's more penguins. Oh, that's so weird. Oh my gosh. The penguins are sitting on a rock, and then a zookeeper gave them an egg, and then it hatched. Oh God, disturbing. This is a book about a true story about two male penguins who raised a chick together. This is a true story. Y'all are banning true stories now? What's disturbing? What is your name again? Seth? Of course it is. And I've talked about Tango Makes 3 before. Publishers have sued to get it returned to Florida school districts. And of course, Waitman acted after he said that a customer raised concerns about the book Calvin in the library's picture book section. Calvin is about a trans kid trying to introduce himself to the world. Waitman says it's an adult conversation in our kids' environment about transsexuals. Seth, what the fuck is wrong with you? Things that go on that people figure out in life as they get older. This is what happens when you don't know how to Google. When kids decide that they are not the gender they were assigned at birth, all that happens is they get a haircut if they want to, change their outfits if they want to, maybe change their name. Is there sex reassignment surgery in Calvin, Seth? I don't think there is. You guys have to always do this. You have to manufacture and instill fear about things that are not happening in order to make people follow along with you. If you have to lie to get your way, maybe you're wrong. Maybe you're wrong. Because I don't have to lie to get my way. You know why? Because I stay in my lane. I parent my own kids. You want to read the Bible to your kids and redeeming love to them at 7 years old and instill that in your girls? That's your business. I can't do anything about that. I think it's gross. I can't do anything about that. I just want the same courtesy. Let me read Calvin to my kids if I want to. Let it be allowed at my kids' library without you fiddling and getting your sticky little fingers all over the books that you just can't help but be so grossed out by. Oh, the penguins are so disturbing. Shut up. Oh my God, you guys are so loud and annoying. Shut up. So now Seth Waitman wants the county staff to look at the library collection for the public library system and use the Florida Department of Education, which is public schooling, not public libraries, annual challenge books list as a guide of what to pull. Pasco's list of 130 books included 100 from the department's list, along with 30 that the staff identified on its own. Aside from Calvin, none of the books were the subject of a public challenge. And he's sending all of the books to the county's library advisory board to determine whether or not they should remain available. And another commissioner, Jack Mariano, said, I don't think we need to wait on a committee. You're right, Jack. Let's just bypass existing policy. No, you're right. Let's break the rules because you're uncomfortable. Oh my God, you guys are just the biggest fucking babies I've ever met. You call everybody a snowflake, but my God, one book exists that like makes you uncomfortable and you're like, oh my God, no, not the policy. It's not good enough in this case. We must remove it immediately, quick, before I have a heart attack. Shut up. Here's the thing. Of course, book banners are just trying to limit access. That is the ultimate goal. The goal isn't safety. That's virtue signaling. That's being used as a smokescreen. The goal is control. And while they claim things like, no, accessibility is still there, like here's Carmen at my children's school board again.
To someone's point that kids can't be within walking distance of public libraries, the libraries will mail you books. But again, it goes back to what the Board of County Commissioners just did. Some of these kids can't even get these books because they're not the right age to get the books.
The Hillsborough County Library website literally says that checkouts by mail can only be done by those 17 and older. Congratulations, idiot. You couldn't even look up the website to fact check yourself. I had to do it for you, and I'm half your age. Although I guess that makes sense considering these people do not know how to use the internet properly. And in fact, you do still have to go physically to the library to return the books they sent you by mail or send them back yourself, which costs money. But book banners don't care about that being a hindrance to people who aren't them. I mean, just look at this comment that I've gotten before that admits that out loud. They don't care that it's a class issue. In fact, they're happy about it. They're glad that these tactics are working to prevent access. The fact is that accessing books is already a class issue, even though we have public libraries. That has not leveled the playing field. People can't always get to a library for many, many reasons. Transportation, disability, simply not having time, childcare issues. Even some 16-year-olds are watching their younger siblings and therefore cannot go to the library because how are they going to get their baby sibling to the library? Many of these kids have jobs starting at 15. Many other kids play a factor into who gets access and who does not. And typically, who doesn't is the lower class. But fascists don't care about that. They don't care about classism. They don't care it's not a level playing field. In fact, again, they're glad it's working in their favor. Carmen likely doesn't use the library at all, but also doesn't want the library that she never uses to even offer sending material that she doesn't like. Do I think this is a good book? No, I do not. But would I ever advocate for lack of access to other people? Nope, I wouldn't. I got it from the library. I will continue to say you can get it from the library too if you want to. I would never advocate for lack of access, even to books that I don't like, because I'm not a fucking hypocrite. But they would, because they are. Because Carmen and Debbie and Michael and Seth, what they're really about is making it so that these things that make them uncomfortable are inaccessible until they simply do not exist anymore. They can't flat out admit that they're trying to censor books though. They will do Olympic level mental gymnastics to try to avoid admitting that because it makes them look really fucking stupid and lessens the potency of their argument. And then they won't be able to galvanize people to back them up. Similar to how he shut the fuck up at the Board of County Commissioners meeting about Marxism, which I called him out on it, right? But the goal is inaccessibility. Inaccessibility where? Everywhere. School libraries were always the first stop because it was always the easiest target. The fact that this has bled into public libraries and is backed by the same non-public schools parents showing up at my kid's school board is proof. So when they tell you this...
Now listen, everyone still has a right to give their child whatever book they want to. So I'm suggesting you remove this book from schools and everyone's rights are preserved. These books are not being banned. That word has become a weapon to marginalize the voices of parents. Nazi book banning and the like has essentially been used to eliminate books from circulation. We're not doing that.
Know that they have already proven to you that they are lying, because now it's also our public libraries. And in Hillsborough County, on top of that, it was also our little free libraries on public parks property. And yours will be next. And then they will come for retail too. Don't let them lie to you that they won't. They're already doing it in small increments. They'll work up to policy. Because if it's enough that one parent can complain, or one at least made up probably parent can complain to change policy in public spaces, yeah, they're going to do that in retail too. They already want the Scholastic Book Fair removed from public schools and replaced with a Christian alternative.
Scholastic is lacing their books with obscene material in the middle of the pages with benign looking covers, so they don't even know it's there. So what we need to do is say, now that we know, now that we're exposing it, let's stop yelling at the school board, turn around in the board meeting, look at the parents and say, hey, mom and dad, what are you doing? Why are you dropping your kids off here 7 hours a day to be indoctrinated by these people? Don't you understand that the whole point of this is to separate you from your children? You sexualize children, you drive a wedge between you and them. And they will go down roads because of their natural curiosity and their impressionable minds with teachers who are pushing this stuff.
Yes.
And Scholastic former CEO is saying we are committed to putting more and more of this material in more and more channels as we possibly can.
And can I just shout out my kid's school? As much as I took issue with Scholastic, stance on the book fair thing a couple of years ago, I still let my kids do the Scholastic Book Fair when it happens. And ours is happening next week. during Banned Books Week. God, that feels like such a slap in the face to all you stupid ass book banners who want your grimy little fingers on my kid's school. Please show up at my kid's school. See what happens. I double dog dare you. I cannot wait to pick out books with my kid. I really cannot. The last time was so fun. And what's funny is the last time I actually bought a book for me, which was Witchlings by Claribel Ortega. And that book and its author were the subject of horrible attacks by right-wingers. So it feels like a bit of justice being able to buy that at my kid's school and just basically being like, hey, go fuck yourself. But right now, citizens are at bookstores, angry for stocking things that they don't like. And instead of just looking at the store like a buffet and ignoring the dishes that you don't want, they view the buffet as theirs to dictate, even if they don't eat there. Well, I eat keto, so everyone at this buffet that I never go to has to eat keto too. That's not how that works. For instance, there was this Langley mom who was upset that a bookstore decided to put a shelf with some vibrators next to the more steamy books. You know, in the part of the bookstore where kids don't go. Wait till she finds out that grocery stores and gas stations sell condoms and lube and boner pills right up at the front. These people, not a one of them, have a lick of sense or self-awareness, and dealing with them is really like being in an episode of Parks and Rec.
My dog went to one of your parks and ate another dog's feces, and I am going to sue you for that.
If sugar is so bad, how come Jesus made it taste so good?
Please remember, this is a government project, so we need to refrain from corporate promotion and religious items.
I think we should put in the Bible. I think we should tax all bad things. Racism and women's vaginas.
We're not taxing anyone's genitals.
I found a sandwich in one of your parks, and I want to know why it didn't have mayonnaise.
Yeah, I don't think kids should be allowed on the playground equipment.
School is out in 2 weeks. What am I going to do with my kids all day? Keep them in my house? Where I live?
And that brings me to the absolute catharsis that was this book, My Kind of Trouble by L.A. Schwartz. Now, it's still primarily a romance and not wholly about book banning. I have another video coming on books about book banning, or it might be out before this. I don't know, my schedule's kind of all out of whack. But book banning is in this book, and I loved that element. Our main characters, Preston and Harmony, and Preston's a librarian, and Harmony's a con woman, and Preston is dealing with the mayor's wife in his city, calling him a peddler of pornography and trying to restrict access. And I thought this was so important and just such a great thing to center like these two people bonding and forming a romance over. Well, part of it is there's several things they bonded over, but one of them is Preston's work. I thought this was so important, and here to tell us more about it is the author L.A. Schwartz.
Hi! I'm here with Leanne Schwartz, also known as L.A. Schwartz, and we are here to talk about Leanne's new book, My Kind of Trouble. Oh, the blur is kicking my butt today. My Kind of Trouble. I'm so excited to talk to you about this. I have been reading it and really enjoying it. So first, I'd love for you to explain this book in your own words and what you loved most about writing it.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. My Kind of Trouble is a gender-swapped homage to The Music Man, updated with a slick con woman, Harmony Hale, who she kind of Robin Hoods it. She only goes after terrible people with her grift. She uses her powers for good. And she comes to the small town where the mayor is the man who ruined her father's life and stole his work. And so she comes to take him down, but she runs into the librarian, Preston Jones, who is busy fighting book banners and trying to raise his little sister who is autistic like him. They get into it. She needs his help with her grift, but he's very stubborn. And eventually they join forces to save Drag Storytime, save all of his library programs, hopefully save his job, find out, if she wants revenge after all, or if she wants maybe a different happy ending. And I think my favorite part about writing this is I've written several young adult fantasies, and I really love getting a break from all that heavy world building. And I got to dive just entirely into the romance here and just have a lot of fun, a lot of humor. And that was really, really fun, but while still doing what I love doing, which is weaving in like what I'm most passionate about and what, wakes me up in the morning and what I can't stop yelling about all the time. And in this case, that was about eat the rich and stopping like the book bans that I was seeing, rising more and more as this movement that we have been dealing with and just getting to like go all out on that and also sharing the autistic experience and just getting to do that in a non-fantasy setting and showing like how people like us may move through the world world and the challenges of that and the loneliness of that, and how people like Preston and his sister Lacey are still, fully human with full lives, and getting to show that like in the context of the lives that people are living now.
I thought the way you talk about Preston being autistic and Lacey being autistic was so well done, because it really it showcases how different they are and how that presents differently in both of them. Not every autistic person is the same person, and I thought that was really special. It's also like, it's kids are still kids when they're autistic, and autistic adults are still adults, and we don't have to infantilize them.
Exactly.
I thought that was so important and so well done. I was really excited to see that in an adult contemporary romance. You kind of touched on what my next question was, but why was talking about book banning important to you in this first adult contemporary romance of yours? And did you hesitate to write this theme considering the current climate?
I didn't, which maybe was foolish. You definitely have seen a little like reluctance from some folks about the politics in the book, but I just can't really help it. Like if I'm going to write something, it's going to come from my heart. It's going to come from my worldview. There's no place for hate in the world that I want. And so I'm always going to speak against that. Yeah, I was inspired at first, like when I first had the idea of like having a con woman and a librarian and updating that somehow. I knew I wanted a con woman. And so when I had this idea of the librarian hero, I was so excited because I was like, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to do with this. This is, if people are familiar with The Music Man, Marion Peru deals with, women in the town going like, this is unsuitable reading material for our young women. It's all classics, Chaucer, which I allude to in the book. And I was like, oh, like this is only more timely now. This is becoming such a huge issue. And I was so excited because I had been following librarians online for years, just because as I got online and kind of joined the bookish community, I was interested in, like behind the scenes, because I love libraries and I love librarians. And so I was like, oh, I want to see what their jobs are like. And I was like, oh, horrific. They're dealing with all these, issues, which, I'm a teacher. And so I've always made sure there were alternative materials ready. We always were making sure that people had that choice for themselves and their children. But seeing how that was playing out more recently, and just the debates going on about how do you, make the library an inclusive space, is it all or nothing? Or do you have to make sure that hate speech isn't going on so that other people don't feel excluded? All of those debates going on among librarianship. I just was fascinated by that. And so I was really excited to get to address it. And I had actually already drafted it when more and more incidents started happening. Like it was in the news nonstop, it felt like, all that summer at libraries and at bookstores and at other spaces holding story times. I had written a book about statues being used to perpetuate lies and tell false histories. And then like that summer after I drafted it, it was the summer of 2020 when they were all getting pulled down. And I was like, oh my God, it's happening again. It's playing out in the news. But that just, makes me excited to feel like that I could be in conversation with things that people cared about and were so passionate about.
You very much nailed the atmosphere of local government meetings.
Yeah.
You have absolutely, I mean, it was like I'm reliving the atmosphere that I've already experienced at Board of County Commissioners and at my school board, and even going to like library board meetings in the wake of my Board of County Commissioners making decisions about the library. In these meetings, these books are called inappropriate, and these very intense and like reductive conversations that almost always lack nuance. What kind of research did you do to nail that authenticity?
I've just followed along. We've had similar situations here where I live in Southern California. We've had challenges mostly from people whose children do not attend our schools, people who don't even live in the area. People love having a vacation home in Southern California. But their children are not in our schools like mine, just all over. And we're fortunate because California signed a law banning book bans just recently. But we still see, like literally here in my home district, we had this big dust up about a picture book with absolutely nothing inappropriate in it. Just the idea of inclusiveness and accepting people for who they are caused this, a whole meeting. And so you see, and I was watching, I've been paying attention for many years to what's been going on in my hometown where I grew up in Northern California, where the book is set. And it kind of blew up in the news again, but I had been following for years, Moms for Liberty, people who wanted to hold a lot of meetings with hate speech in public spaces, people who would show up, one person protesting a rainbow sidewalk for Pride or protesting, like a picture book. And it actually blew up really big recently. That person was yelling at a drag queen in Hawaii, and it was all over the news. Yeah.
And it's the same woman?
The same woman. And me and all of my friends were like, finally, because we have been aware of her and scared. There have been bomb threats against schools, interrupting education, against the library, my beloved Yolo County Library, where that formed me into who I am, and those schools that educated me. She was screaming incoherently all kinds of hate at a drag queen. And
she was.
It finally came to light. Yeah. So like that kind of person, and then seeing them in meetings, sorry to get like a little bit off, but just the small towns, and just like, I've always tried to be involved and pay attention to what's going on and speak up for the library whenever I can. So yeah, just that. And also, Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
big inspiration.
Yeah, Parks and Rec, it was ahead of its time. It really nailed what it's like having these meetings. It's fiction, but it's like my real life experience and your real life experience. And then it's also, it inspired, I think, like the stuff that we're seeing in this, because it really does feel like being in these ridiculous situations that is like, is this a skit?
And just hopefully putting a spin on it and like letting us laugh about it, because it's, it's dead serious to us, but then it's like you can only laugh at the ridiculousness of how they'll pull a certain line out and read it. And it's like, of course it sounds terrible out of context.
Exactly. That sort of bleeds into my next question, which is, was there any sort of sense of catharsis writing this? Because for me, it was so satisfying seeing like certain parts where like Cheryl, our book banner, her friends start picking up the books that Cheryl does not like. And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
And she's like, they're starting to fall in love with these books that she wants out of the library. So is it cathartic writing things like that?
Absolutely. Like all of my books are kind of like aspirational, in a fantasy setting, it can be much more violent. But Harmony to me is like, what if you just could talk your way into anything, like as a nervous, introvert, autistic, she's so aspirational to me that like, what if you could talk your way into whatever you wanted? What if people just wanted to give you what you asked for because you were so charming and you were so dogged and driven that you just would wear people away long enough for them to just see and open their eyes a little bit to things that they were scared of because they had never taken a look at her. So she's around long enough and so charming and everybody loves her that they're like, well, what is this book that I saw her reading? She does it so subtly. And then once they start opening it and they realize that there's nothing to be scared of inside those pages, that if they chose to, that they could enjoy them as long as they were comfortable. Turns out they're like, oh, there's nothing here that bothers me. I'm actually having a really good time. It was really fun to like give that, like that's her little gift to Preston as he's struggling with these people. And he's like, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to talk to them. I want to run away. He's so passionate about his work for library patrons and as a youth services librarian, but he doesn't know how to deal with these adults that start coming for him. And that's her little gift, just to like show that like there's actually, a wonderful world that he's offering all of you if you would just take a minute to see what he has to offer.
I love that it was like a positive outcome small con that she ran where she was like, oh, this book, you should try it. and the book banning adjacent people were like, I did like that.
Yeah.
It's sort of like when we sneak in vegetables to our kids' food.
Yeah. Except this time it's like a wonderful fantasy with angsty, villain love interests. And it was really fun to get to put in like books that I love, that I know that people have had problems with, and just share those titles in the book itself.
You are making this so crazy easy for me because you keep leading me into my next question. There's even specific references to banned books in here, such as Girl Serpent Thorn, which is a YA book that has been challenged. Why was it important to you to keep that detail in rather than
making up like a fake book for, the service of this book to discuss book banning.
My agent and I were talking about it, that he was saying like, oh, try to work in like just a little bit of information about each one too. Because I had the titles in there. And so I like went in just so that people would kind of know like, this one is a folk tale retelling. And yeah, just that I thought people could pick it up. I've seen some of my favorite books like Eve Brown will have like the list of music that they're listening to. And I was like, oh, people could find these books and pick them up. Girl, Serpent, Thorn was so important to me, reading that and just the story that was so unexpected in there. And that was a comp that I had used for what became my debut. And I just, it was kind of like a way of saying thank you to the authors that, inspired me, and knowing that they're out there, dealing with challenges like this, just like in any small way to get to like tell people that their book exists, and that I thought it was great. Maybe they'll see somebody like Preston if they like Preston and they see that he likes it.
There were so many shout outs to different books in here. Howl's Moving Castle. One of my favorites was in here, The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea.
Yeah.
I love that book. So I was so excited. This is one book where I really feel like the pop culture references worked for me, which is rare, which I just love.
It can be risky. It can be risky.
Yeah,
and I did have to take a joke out, not about an author, but about, because there's the music concert and stuff, and like celebrities will act badly, and you're like, let me just change that joke to somebody else, and that person could make an issue tomorrow, but I'll have to live with it because it's they're dealing with pop culture, books and music. So
yeah, this is one book where that really worked. But yeah, I could see that, and even like book banners themselves will probably take issue with seeing themselves reflected in the pages. Did you at any point while writing this, or as it's about to come out in October, receive any pushback about writing this? Or if you haven't yet, do you anticipate that you will?
Yeah, I mean, depending on who takes notice of it, I'm kind of hoping to fly under the radar and just hopefully be a voice for people who are dealing with this struggle, or just like quietly, suggesting changes to hearts and minds. We've definitely, it's really hard to know what's going on behind the scenes. I don't want to make too much of it, but just like any book that steps outside of like the very mainstream of like what a contemporary rom-com can be, just having Harmony on the cover is a statement, because she is fat. I was really excited that Preston was on the cover. I've had all my heroines are fat, and they've all been on the cover, but the male love interests tend to be on the back or like kind of hidden in the corner. I was really excited to have an autistic main character on the front, but I definitely got pushback, as we were trying to sell this. People, might not have been so interested in that whole side of things, anything that I was bringing up about body positivity or autism, and then also the book banning. And it's not like it's totally strident. It's just quietly accepting of the fact that you should accept people for who they are. And that's a very basic position to take. But we've definitely had hints that I'm highly aware that, like even in California, like people don't want that ruckus. Even if you can't legally ban a book anymore, and this is an adult book, but there are books that are simply not being ordered, simply not being stocked in certain areas because of the potential for somebody to be upset. And people have very hard jobs and they don't want to deal with that. It's definitely a concern, and I don't care. I would still write it.
Yeah. That's very Harmony of you.
It is what it is. Like, I don't want to just put out something that's, just like, I mean, I love romance, but I always want it to be about the bigger picture that the characters are living in.
What do you hope this book does for the conversation around book challenges and bans?
I was realizing as I was getting ready to come on today, I was like, I don't know how much of this is common knowledge. Like, I've been following librarians for years, and just like understanding what the ALA is dealing with and what, librarians all over the country are dealing with. And so I just hope that people who may not be aware of what's been going on, that it tends to be a very small faction of people who are working together nationwide, and then sending these challenges to people who are, working in each area. But it's not people. It used to be, somebody might come across a book and go, oh, I don't feel comfortable with my kid reading this. And the school could offer an alternative and the school could talk about it. But now it tends to be somebody who comes in with a write-up for 60 books where they're filling out the form over and over. They have not read these books, and they're just jotting down what other people have told them. And they make this database of these books. And that's why we've seen such a huge increase. I hope people learn that the increase is like by factors of hundreds, of percents. It's just completely spiked. And it's created this headache for schools and for public libraries that, we had a school here that had to shut down its library and class libraries for a whole week against its own procedures, just because of 2 books, and just to deal with it. And it wasn't a book that a child had brought home. It was just an injected controversy. So I hope that people see what's going on so that they know that if they care to, they should be supporting their librarians. They should be, going to those meetings or writing an email and going in, even just like when they're in the library, letting the librarians know, like, hey, I see your pride display and I appreciate it. Just like speaking up and letting them know that they support their important work.
It really comes through so much that this book is, sure, it's like a kind of an FU to book banners a little bit, but it's also a love letter to autistic folks, and it's a love letter to fat folks and people whose bodies don't typically end up on the cover of a romance book. And it's also a love letter to librarians and libraries, and that comes through so passionately in such a very loving way and a very authentic way. I mean, when my Bureau of County Commissioners was debating whether or not to set more restrictions, which are unnecessary, for, on kids checking out books, many of my county commissioners were saying, I mean, first of all, our libraries are a refuge for folks. The things that parents need in order to make those decisions are already there, because the libraries have really gone out of their way to make a environment that can work for all, that does encompass all. And Preston really showcases that in how much he does outside of just librarians don't just stack books on shelves and get your returns and put them back or help you find a book. Like, that's all important work, but libraries are absolute hubs for our communities, and that really came through so much in this book. It was so beautifully done. So I hope that the feedback that you get notes that over and over again, because I think that you've done such good work here showcasing how important libraries are to communities, particularly small town environments.
Thank you.
Okay, so final thoughts. Let us know when the book is coming out.
Thanks for having me. My Kind of Trouble comes out October 8th, so just a few weeks. I'm just really excited for people to get a chance to meet Preston and Harmony.
I am also excited about that. I think they are so wonderful. And Preston and Harmony, I mean, hopefully not the con woman bit, but Preston and Harmony really exist in our community. And so I'm excited for them in real life to see themselves on page.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for such a wonderful book. Thank you so much for being here. I hope everybody will go check out the book when it comes out October 8th. There's some links to pre-order down below. And thank you again, Leanne. I really appreciate you being here and talking about this.
Thank you.
I so enjoyed my reading experience with this book, and not just because of the book banning theme. It says it's perfect for fans of spoiler alert, which is absolutely true. I totally agree with. That's one of my go-to adult contemporary romance books to recommend to others. I haven't seen The Music Man, but I love anything about con artists, specifically about women con artists. Shout out Little Thieves. Harmony is such a great main character. She's so quick on her feet, and she has to be since she's running cons. She's smart as a whip, and it's funny watching her put on this con for this music festival when the whole time you're like, Harmony, you have the capability and the smarts and the ability to lead. You should just do it. Make this your Leslie Knope moment and actually create the Harvest Festival. She's very Leslie and Preston is very Ben. My Kind of Trouble had shout outs to other books in it, again, such as The Girl Who Fell Beneath the Sea. This is one of the rare books where I love pop culture references. And the romance was just darling. The spicy scenes were good. And you know that I'm very picky about those. But I also love that it's a book that shows this deep importance of, my commissioner Gwen Myers said, the library is a refuge. The library is so much more than putting books on shelves. The library system in our county, just like Preston's in this book, is responsible for putting on programming that is enriching our community. Children having story time is huge here. I've taken my kids to story time at so many locations, and it's huge in Preston's library. Other programming and access like English classes and genealogy access and even just internet access are huge, important things that so many libraries offer. And seeing my county's libraries and Preston's being accused of being dangerous to kids and librarians being porn peddlers is a slippery slope that we need to be talking about. I'm so glad that this book took the opportunity to do that. This is a romance that felt like worth my time. It was entertaining, it was sweet, but it's also so important. It comes out October 8th, and I hope that you'll request it at your library if you have one. Shout out to the public libraries again, or pre-order it. I did leave links below to make it easy. I'm going to close with the email that I sent to the Board of County Commissioners after all of this happened. I had called in to try to say this live at the meeting, but unfortunately, I got hung up on. So I just sent it in an email. I'm writing you again regarding the library motion from last month. First, thank you to my district commissioner, Harry Cohen, for keeping constituents in mind when he voiced my exact concern that the motion seemed like a slippery slope. I'm grateful to have a commissioner who takes my concern into consideration. I'm disappointed but not surprised to not only have my valid questions from last month gone unanswered, but also that I'm the only person between all of us who showed up to the subsequent library board meeting, despite certain people saying that they were concerned parents and that's why they were in favor of certain motions. I didn't see them or their spouse in attendance. I spoke at the library board and felt the opposite of what I felt leaving the county commissioners. There I felt wholly listened to as a parent and a library patron. I spoke last month after words like radical and Marxism were used prior to the meeting, and then suddenly at the meeting we're talking about leaving the ALA because the library did not benefit from affiliation. As I told the library board at the meeting that, again, no one else here was in attendance of, it is fine with me if the library board says they do not benefit from ALA affiliation and want to drop it. However, I'm not going to be gaslit when I know good and well that the reason the ALA affiliation was called into question at all is because certain people who refused to define Marxism were concerned about Marxism. If those comments were not said in the news, then I would not have felt the need to ask for clarity on them. I still have received none. Don't gaslight your constituents if we show up here saying that things were said on the news were concerning and that we would like you to clarify. I found fascinating the mental gymnastics that went into comparing our publicly funded library to a private company like Disney, which was called woke, whatever that's supposed to mean. I would like a definition for that as well. If Disney told me they wanted to use my taxpayer dollars to create an unneeded measure to keep my kids safe, I would say no thank you because it's unneeded, which is what all of us parents were saying last month because we know that we already have the necessary protective measures in place, as 3 of you logically noted in the meeting last month. As an actual parent, I make evidence-based decisions for my kids in creating their school IEPs, their medical choices, and even what they eat in the school cafeteria. I was simply asking that we do what evidence suggests is best for kids here as well, rather than base things on fear. Fear of what? Well, members of this board mentioned a lawsuit saying all it takes is one, which was telling to me. So it's not about protecting kids then, it's about preventing a lawsuit. Because as many of the actual parents pointed out, under the vague definition given, the Bible would constitute pornography as well. So any parent could sue over the Bible, right? And despite not wanting to bite,
I heard some of the comments too, especially bringing the Bible in, and I'm not going to bite on that. But what I will tell you, the books that I'm about to go over are very far from the Bible.
You would have to explain that double standard to a judge if that lawsuit turned into a court case. Gwen Myers, thank you for sharing your factual statement that the library is a refuge for folks. Pat Kemp, thank you for wisely stating that the measures parents need are already in place. How ironic then that someone here who does not have children, yet thinks that it is prudent for them to make measures about library safety for children, asked from whom the library was a refuge from. The same person who switched their answer from child safety to preventing lawsuits. Ask an actual library patron from whom the library is a refuge from. Many of us use the library to escape abusive homes and abusive schools. But considering the fact that all of us parents sat there and said how we felt as parents and library patrons, and we're not listened to, I don't think our answers actually matter. The library has consistently been an asset to our family and to this community. Please support the actual parents who use it. Let me do my job. I'm not co-parenting with you. So that's what happened. That's my brief review of My Kind of Trouble author interview. And now here's my plea to you. No matter where or who you are, even if this isn't happening yet in your county, do not let book challenges and book bans go unchecked. This shit festers. Book banners are stupid, but they are organized and they are good at disseminating disinformation to instill fear in others, and they are putting themselves in positions of power to try to control everyone else. And this will mean more and more marginalized folks see less and less books where they are reflected in the pages. Please join in the fight. This can be as big as speaking at your local meetings, school board, county commissioners, library boards, but it's also as small as reading the books and talking about them and talking about why they're being banned, where and by whom. The more we shed light on those 4 things and bring nuance and context to a fight where the other side
thrives on the lack of those things, the better shot we have at stopping this. I hired my friend Natalie from Weirdo Book Club to create this. It's a graphic that you guys can use to post about your recent reads, your recent banned book reads, or your favorite banned book. It gives you the chance to talk about the book, but also share the information on the where, the why, and the who regarding who banned or challenged it. I have this up on Instagram, or you can use the link down below to grab this graphic. Thank you so much again to LA Schwartz for being here today, and thank you all for listening to me absolutely rage about these fucking idiots. I hope you'll check out My Kind of Trouble, and I really, really hope that you will join us in the fight against censorship. Thank you so much for watching. Leave your comments and questions down below. I will see you next time. Bye.
And before I go, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my Therapy Bills patrons, and those are Alexander, Ashley H, Astra, Astrid P, Brittany Bobitney, Call Me Kodiak, Choco's Trash for Japanese Mysteries and Thrillers, Chris the Horror Therapist, DJ Rocktopus, EK Casey, Ellie, Aaron with 2 E's, Eric GalaxyBot, Jess, John E, Julie D, K, Kaleno K, Casey McKenzie, Kate W, Quinn, Lady Kittybug, Lictor of the Undying Josh, Lictor? It can't be licked, can it? I don't know. Lady Chips, Lemon Jelly, Lily B, Max B, Min B, Mommy Zombie, Alice, Panoramic Demon, Peggy Luhu, Rain, Ree Mirage, Reese, SJ, Samar, Scarlet, Shiny, SMK, Spoopy, Steph B, T Delegati, 2 Orbit, Urchin Audrey, White Raven 13, Zorvictia, and Chai Guy. Thank you all so much for being here and for being a friend. And last but not least, I have to say thank you for being a friend to my potato starch Marxists, and those are AB Daniels Anaki, Alejandra, Alicia Herbie Derby Do. Alicia, what did you change your last name to? Althea, Amanda D, Andy, Angelica, Armadildo. What are you guys doing? Artie the Ninth, Ava, Ballads and Bookends, Beck, Blake Lemon Pants, Blythe, Bookish Brainrot, Bookish by Jenna, Bree, Kate B, Caitlin, Cardinal Ginger, Carlin, Carly, Casper, Kate W, Catherine, Kathy, CJ, Claire Online, Colleen, Corwin, Cosmic, Darius, Danielle, Darren, Desiree Michelle, Dilf Enthusiast, Dorothea, Drive-By Thinker, E.T. Cosgrove, Ebby, Emily A, Emma, Emma Kingsbane, Ezra Moon, Fiona, Francis, Gadarn, Hannah Bunny, Hannah C, Harpy Kuro, JM Tennant, Jay's on Olympus, Jelly V, Jen Michelle, Genderqueer, Jenny G, Jessa Sue, Jill, Jojo Bookish, Juicy Wizard, Kat, you guys are killing me, Catherine, Katie L, Kaylee, Kayala, Kendra, Kitten, KMTV, Laughing Cat Dog, Lauren G, Lazarus Ray, Library of Scars, Lindsay M, Lisa B, Lisa L, LP, Luciri, Lustful Octopus. Oh man, that reminds me of that Kraken book I just read the other day. Martin, Maddie Moen, Madison, Man-Eating Plant, Marquita, Megan, Malara, May, Mima Who, Molly, Never, Nicole G, Nicole R, Nimeska, Nyan Binary, Paige P, Paul, Penelope G, Penny Chilling, Foxglove, Pandemonium, Queen Cereal, Rachel B, Reba, Rebecca R, Ronnie, Rosie Thorns, Rowan, Sikoria, Saintbringer, Sakia Lume, Sarah H, Sarah the Bear, Sarah Z, Shamed, Shannon, Sean, Sisette, Sophie, Talia, Tiana, Trashcan Teddy, Triple M, Tito Phoenix, Wobbs. It says Wobbs. I am going to need you to tell me how to say that. It's W-H-A-A-B-Z. Is it Wobbs? Help me. Writer A and multi-level marketing scheme with a W. Oh my God, you guys kicked my ass today. All right, thank you.